deaths on live stream to unexpected political assassinations. This is the ultimate iceberg of the most disturbing videos on the internet, where I've compiled the most horrifying clips ever captured just before disaster struck. Let's start at the tip of the iceberg. Level 1. Gas container gets missiled and exploded in a crowd. It's one thing to watch a fire burn from a safe distance, it's another to see part of it flying straight at you. In this clip, firefighters and bystanders had gathered around what looked like an ordinary blaze, cameras rolling as crews sprayed down the flames. But hidden inside the fire was a ticking time bomb, a gas container heating up under the intense heat. As the flames grew hotter, pressure built inside the metal cylinder until it suddenly shot out of the fire like a missile. The camera captured it in real time as it launched out of the fire and slammed into the crowd. Just a moment later, it exploded into an orange fireball. The scene spiraled out of control. Flames spread across the area, burning some of the equipment and even the sleeve of one firefighter's uniform. He had to quickly put it out before jumping back in to help. The video first surfaced on Reddit, where users compared it to a real-life RPG round. Others noted how impossible it would have been for anyone in the crowd to react fast enough. Some joked that it looked like a scene straight out of a Michael Bay movie, except this wasn't Hollywood, and no director was yelling "cut" after the blast. Shockingly, such explosions are not rare. In 2023, a gas station blast in Makhachkala, Russia, killed dozens when fuel tanks ruptured. Earlier this year, a gas tanker exploded in Mexico City that shook entire neighborhoods. That's what makes this clip so striking. 1 second you're filming a fire from what feels like a safe distance, the next, you're at ground zero of an explosion. Motorcycle racetrack crash. In motorcycle racing, control is everything. One small mistake can put a rider in a life and death situation. And that's exactly what happened at the Catalunya circuit in Barcelona. The circuit is famous for its high-speed straights and punishing corners that demand absolute precision. A little extra show of skill is required, and racers from all over the world have come to do just that. However, that day, precision alone wasn't enough. As one racer reached a tricky bend, he lost control. His bike slipped out from under him and scraped across the track before crashing into the safety barriers. Sparks flew as marshals rushed to respond, but before they could even raise their flags, another rider hit the same corner and went down in almost the same spot. Then another, and another. Bikes slid and clattered across the asphalt, and their riders slammed hard onto the pavement. It all happened in less than half a minute, but then things got even worse. One of the crashed motorcycles caught fire and thick black smoke covered the course. Track officials rushed in and waved flags to warn the rest of the riders, but at that speed, there was almost no chance to react in time. Clips of the crash made their way onto Reddit, where users quickly dissected every frame. Some said it looked exactly like the Mario Kart banana peel, while others pointed out the oil spill shining under the lights. But no official reports confirmed the oil claims. As for the riders, most were seen getting back on their feet, which came as a relief. Level 2. Skier falls into crevasse. GoPro footage is one of the most chaotic forms of storytelling, and this particular clip is the best proof of that. 26-year-old Jamie Molnar was skiing down a glacial slope in the Swiss Alps with friends in the recording. Ironically, he had noticed visible cracks in the ice near the base of the run, but he didn't pay much attention to them. What he did not know was that a much larger crevasse covered by a thin crust of snow was waiting right ahead. When he got there, the ground beneath him disappeared within seconds, and the snow swallowed him. He dropped nearly 60 feet deep into the glacier's frozen belly. The fall ended violently, with Jamie wedged between walls of rugged rocks, but he didn't panic at all. Jamie simply pulled out his radio and informed his companions that, I'm quite far down. I need quite a lot of help to get out."
Yeah, I'm gonna need quite a lot of help to get out.
Using his ski poles, he stabilized himself until emergency services arrived to help. The rescue team lowered ropes into the crevasse, carefully pulling him out before airlifting him to safety. After such a chilling fall, quite literally too, Jamie walked away with no serious injuries. When the footage hit YouTube, it spread like wildfire, gaining over 4.7 million views. Viewers were stunned not only by the fall itself, but by how Jamie kept his cool. Some skeptics questioned whether the video was even real, while others admitted that it was the calm narration that actually made it creepier. Car flips into construction site. It was around 7 a.m. on March 1st in Guangxi, China, when a driver's usual commute turned into a shocking tragedy. The incident was caught on camera and quickly spread across the internet. A rider named Zhao suddenly switched lanes without checking nearby traffic. That reckless move set off a horrifying chain reaction. His car struck another vehicle at high speed, sending it spinning out of control. Within a few seconds, Zhao's car flipped over, tore through the roadside barrier, and crashed straight into an active construction site. The 3 workers at the site were completely unaware of the danger above. 2 managed to spot the incoming car in time and scrambled to safety, but the 3rd one wasn't so lucky. He got stuck at the bottom of a round excavation pit, almost frozen in fear. As the car fell, everyone held their breath, but as the dust faded, they were shocked to see him alive. Apparently, the car had landed at such an angle that it narrowly dodged the terrified worker. Even the driver was somehow safe and climbed out in shock. They both only sustained minor injuries, but the vehicles in the construction site suffered heavy damage. The video gained attention on Reddit and Chinese news outlets, where viewers couldn't believe how closely they both dodged a near-death incident. Many even called it a miracle in real time, while some said it looked like GTA in live action. However, many were furious with the reckless driver, saying, all because one idiot said, "Oh, it's this right I need to take." A fraction of a second, a slightly different angle, and this story probably would have been a little further down our list. And if being on edge is your cup of tea, well, why don't you hit that subscribe button so we can make sure you bite off all your nails in the upcoming levels. Level 3. World record car jump attempt goes wrong. The setup for the stunt looked straight out of a video game. A massive snow ramp, a modified Mini Countryman reinforced like a tank. It looked like he could pull it off smoothly, but the launch proved otherwise. The man in question is Guerlain Chichery, a rally driver, a freestyle ski champion, and someone allergic to playing it safe. He set out on a mission to break the world record for the longest car jump at the ski resort in Tignes in the French Alps. That meant he needed to clear Tanner Faust's 100-meter leap, roughly the length of a football field, a record that had stood since 2011. The vehicle flew with great momentum, a clear trajectory, and lots of airtime. But halfway across, things started going wrong. The car's nose dipped sharply, and by the time he got near the landing ramp, the Mini was practically vertical. The look on Guerlain's face almost makes you expect to hear a record scratch, then a voiceover explaining, "Yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation." The countryman struck the ground head first, smashing into the ramp and somersaulting violently across the snow. The metal was crushed and the glass shattered. For a moment, everyone held their breath, thinking it was a fatal crash. But thanks to an ultra-tough roll cage and Guerlain's safety gear, the impossible happened. He crawled out with nothing more than scrapes and soreness. Emergency crews rushed in, and later he posted the most casual update ever: "I'm all good." Women fall into a septic tank. They say hold your ground, but what do you do when the ground won't hold you? In this video, several women were cooking together in what seems like a backyard or communal space. And then, without warning, the slab beneath them gave way and 2 of the women disappeared straight into the pit below. Turns out the floor wasn't rigid at all. In fact, it was a thin layer of concrete hiding a septic tank. The ground literally swallowed them. The pit was filled with foul water and sludge, and the women struggled in panic as others rushed to help. It took wild pulling and shouting to drag them out. They were soaked and shaken, but thankfully alive, if not a little traumatized. The video spread quickly on social media. Some commenters reacted with dark humor, comparing it to a real-life Looney Tunes trapdoor gag, except with sewage. Others were horrified, pointing out that this is neglect. Covering a septic tank with a thin slab was a disaster waiting to happen. And this was not a one-time occurrence. Similar incidents have led to far worse outcomes. In 2023, a student at Obafemi Awolowo University in Nigeria died after falling into a campus septic tank. Experts say poorly built or concealed septic systems are common in areas where building codes aren't enforced. So, if you're in a shady area, there is quite a possibility that the ground you're standing on might just be a fragile lid over a pit of toxic waste. Jewelry store robbery. September 5th, 2025. On a quiet Friday in San Jose's Kim Hung Jewelry Store, just after 2:09 p.m., the 88-year-old owner and his son were putting items into the safe. They were preparing to lock up after another shift when an SUV reversed at full speed and crashed straight through the storefront, shattering display cases and causing a violent explosion of glass. Then the driver drove the car out of the wreckage, and you might expect he'd come in saying sorry or trying to cover the costs of the damage, but instead more than a dozen masked suspects surged inside the store armed with hammers and large iron rods. Before the owners could register the situation, they started smashing the glass display cases with full force. The elderly owner was shoved to the ground while the robbers ripped through display after display. Amid the chaos, one suspect waved a gun and directed the others. It was as if they had been planning this for days. The entire heist lasted barely minutes. Then, just as fast as it began, they scattered into multiple getaway cars and vanished down the street. The old man was injured by the glass shrapnel and was taken to the hospital. Doctors found out his heart couldn't handle the pressure, and he'd also suffered a painful stroke. Thankfully, it wasn't fatal, and he's now in recovery. However, the store was absolutely destroyed. The robbery caused an estimated $50,000 to $100,000 in physical damages, but the value of the stolen items remains undisclosed. As of now, police have not released details about the suspects. But the damage ran deeper than the financial loss. The owner, who has run this store for more than 40 years, might never return because of the trauma. His niece also shared the same thoughts as she said, "I don't think he's coming back. Absolutely not." Elected officials, public safety advocates, and members of San Jose's Vietnamese community rallied in outrage. They called on the state for more funding and stronger action against the recent surge in smash-and-grab crimes. Woman crashes her car while singing Britney Spears' song. She said, "Hit me, baby, one more time," and, ironically, the universe answered in real time. On July 2nd, Caitlin McCutcheon from Pennsylvania decided to try her own version of carpool karaoke. But instead of James Corden in the passenger seat, it was her phone camera. She queued up Britney Spears' Baby One More Time, hit that record, and went full pop star mode behind the wheel. For a moment, it looked like a regular TikTok, like thousands of others do online, but then came the plot twist. As she sang, her car rolled onto loose gravel. The tires slipped, and before Caitlin even realized it, she'd lost control. The vehicle veered off toward a hill and flipped onto its side, and the entire thing was captured in real time, turning a cheerful sing-along into one of the most surreal right before it all went wrong videos you'll ever see. The crash looked brutal, but somehow Caitlin was almost unharmed. She did suffer a concussion and some bruises, but all things considered, nothing too serious. Miraculously, her car got off easy too, just a busted mirror and window. Even the soundtrack kept running, as if Britney herself were singing along to the moment. Afterward, Caitlin admitted she learned her lesson the hard way. No more recording TikToks while driving. She later posted the video captioning it, "I guess you could say they hit me one more time." Level 4. P. Diddy sunbathing hours before arrest. Imagine if someone posted a video of Diddy sunbathing with the caption, "Bro had no idea he was about to get a permanent tan." You may laugh, but not after knowing the context behind it. On a warm afternoon in Central Park, Sean Diddy Combs looked like any New Yorker taking a break. He laid back on the grass, talking with people nearby and soaking up the sunshine. The kind of vibe you'd expect in a TikTok montage about Self-Care Sunday. Nothing seemed off until it all went haywire. Just hours after this footage was captured, federal agents from Homeland Security closed in on Diddy and arrested him as part of a long-running human trafficking and racketeering investigation. These allegations weren't even recent. They had been building for months through lawsuits and multiple women. One of them was Cassie, his former partner, who said he mistreated her for years. People who rewatch the footage now can't help but analyze every gesture, wondering if he knew the clock was running out. Was he genuinely relaxed, or was this his last attempt to appear unbothered before everything collapsed? The clip quickly spread across social media and became an example of just how fast things can flip upside down. One tweet compared it to The Sims, where your character looks fine 1 minute, then suddenly everything in their world is on fire. You get the idea. Now, Diddy's case has turned into a national spectacle, with updates making headlines regularly. He has pleaded not guilty, and his legal team insisted that the claims were exaggerated. To Diddy's surprise, the trial didn't go his way. And in July 2025, he was convicted on 2 counts of transporting individuals for prostitution and is due to be sentenced on October 3rd. Reckless teens. With a car full of friends, these teenagers sped through a tunnel while recording their ride. The first 30 seconds of the clip were electrifying. The tunnel lights flickered overhead and made the whole scene look like something out of a movie. The teens inside were having the time of their lives until they found out what was waiting for them at the end. As they emerged from the tunnel, the car hit a speed bump at nearly 150 kilometers per hour. The impact threw everyone forward, the driver jerking the wheel as the tires screeched against the asphalt. The car fishtailed, and in seconds, the vibe changed from thrilling to life-threatening. Instead of straightening out, the car slammed into a line of parked cars. Metal bent, windows shattered, and just like that, it was complete and total chaos. The same teenagers who were screaming with excitement were now frozen in shock, sitting inside a mangled frame of steel with permanently rolled down windows. Clips of the wreck spread quickly online. Commenters didn't hold back. Some joked about it being a Fast and Furious audition gone wrong, while others pointed out how close this came to killing everyone. Officers shot point blank by a bystander. Traffic officers rarely find themselves in gunfights, but in Cape Town, anything can happen. On November 17, 2015, traffic officer Nizam Alexander was on duty on N2 highway near Bouchard's Quarry. He had pulled over a driver for using the yellow emergency lane to skip the jam. Dashcam footage shows him walking calmly toward the stopped car for the routine citation. However, the dashcam also captured something else. Something that's easy to miss at first. A young man walked past the stopped car. Everything looked normal. He disappeared from the frame and then reappeared, and he could be seen fiddling with something in his hands. And as they came into view, it became clear he was holding a gun. When he tried to fire it, it jammed. For a few tense seconds, he struggled with it while the officer dealt with the driver. Then he fixed the gun, walked straight up, and shot Officer Nizam point blank in the back. The vest took the impact. Nizam immediately ducked behind the stopped vehicle, pulled out his own firearm, and fired back. The amateur criminal stood no chance. He fled into the nearby informal housing, and Nizam tried to chase him and immediately called for backup, but the suspect quickly disappeared. Instead of wasting more time, Nizam returned to the original scene, calmly finishing writing out the ticket, and only then sought medical help. Think about that. He's just been shot in broad daylight. Most people would be on the ground calling for cover. Nizam? He shrugged it off and still wrote the ticket. That's dedication, or maybe just stubbornness. Either way, it shows exactly why he was awarded Traffic Officer of the Year. The dashcam footage spread across news outlets worldwide, shocking viewers not just because of the apparent random attack, but because of Alexander's composure. Jogger gets attacked. On June 17, 2018, at 7:35 a.m., a 37-year-old woman set out for her usual run. It was just a normal morning, but it was almost the morning that she got kidnapped. An orange Hyundai Santa Fe unexpectedly slowed down beside her. The driver pulled over, stepped out, and suddenly charged. Surveillance cameras caught it all. An old man tried to drag her toward his SUV while assaulting her. She screamed, kicked, and fought with everything she had. Both of them tumbled to the ground in the struggle, but she refused to give in. Luckily, she was able to break free from the perpetrator. And here's the part that stunned police. She didn't even run. She just turned, pulled out her phone, and snapped a crucial picture of his car as he sped away. The photo would later help track him down. But it almost wasn't necessary. A passing driver had seen the attack and followed the orange SUV, calling authorities. The chase didn't last long. The vehicle crashed in West Bridgewater, and the attacker was taken into custody. The woman survived with bruises and the terror etched into her memory. She later said the only reason she made it out alive was because she never stopped fighting. The offender was identified as 57-year-old Gordon Lyons. He was a repeat offender with past assault convictions. And in this case, he was charged with indecent assault and battery. Firefighter helicopter crash in Rosperdon, France. Fighting fire from the ground is dangerous enough, but fighting it from the sky adds a whole new level of risk. One wrong move, and the rescue mission can turn into a disaster of its own. And a French firefighting team learned this lesson the hard way on August 24th, 2025. At the time, fast-moving wildfires were taking over Brittany, and the people of Rosperdon, France, had gathered near the lake to watch a firefighting helicopter swoop low to scoop up water. They'd already made more than 24 drops that day to protect the homes and forests from damage. People filmed proudly, watching their firefighters push back against the flames. But then came the moment no one expected. As the Moraine 29 chopper dipped down toward the lake, its tail rotor clipped the water's surface. In seconds, the helicopter violently spun out of control. It crashed into the lake, sending up a spray of water as people on shore screamed. Witnesses later said it all happened in under 10 seconds. Miraculously, both the pilot and the onboard firefighter managed to escape the wreckage and swim to safety. They were rushed to a nearby hospital with minor injuries. For many, it was almost impossible to believe anyone survived after watching that violent crash. Online, viewers reacted with a mix of shock and awe about how these men literally stared death in the face and swam out like nothing happened. Despite the crash, firefighting operations were resumed within hours. A replacement helicopter was dispatched because the officials couldn't risk further damage from the still spreading fire. According to France's Civil Aviation Authority, rotor strikes during water scoops are among the most dangerous moments for firefighting pilots. One mistake, one miscalculation, and there's no second chance. So what happens when the mission to save lives costs the rescuers their own? Food content creator hit by car while eating. 1 second, they were rating how juicy the burger was. Next, something came crashing through the wall like it was part of the menu. On August 16, 2025, food content creators Nina Santiago, also known as Nina Unrated, and Patrick Blackwood were filming a review at QV's Culinary Creations in Houston, Texas. Their camera was rolling and their table was full of food. Then, out of nowhere, an SUV drove straight into the storefront. And unfortunately, Nina and Patrick were sitting right across the glass. According to reports, a woman was trying to beat traffic and gunned it across the road, but instead of turning left into the flow, she panicked. With terrible vehicle handling, she shot forward and crashed through the glass front of the restaurant. The SUV slammed directly into Nina and Patrick's booth, sending food, glass, and dishes flying in seconds. Patrick instinctively tried to shove Nina out of harm's way, and that move may have spared her from worse injuries. The two were rushed to the hospital with cuts, bruises, and concussions, but thankfully, they survived. The driver walked away unharmed. Their own video captured the terrifying moment, and when Nina uploaded it to their channel, Unrated X-Files, under this caption. The pair even revisited the spot later, but this time, despite the restaurant's reassurance, they didn't take any chances and chose a table that was as far from the window as possible. Level 5. Gas truck explosion in Mexico City. There's a saying, fire doesn't forgive, and this video proved that true in the most violent way possible. On September 10th, 2025, during evening rush hour in the Iztapalapa district, cars were bumper to bumper under the Concordia Bridge. People were honking and commuters were just trying to get home. In the middle of all this chaos came a massive tanker carrying over 13,000 gallons of propane. While navigating a curve, it lost control. The driver tried his best to get it back under control, but the tanker tipped. Witnesses said it wobbled, rolled, then collapsed onto its side. For a moment, it looked like just another highway accident. Drivers slowed, some even got out to film the flipped truck. Then, the unthinkable happened. The tanker exploded in a fireball that ripped through the highway. Nearly 30 cars around the truck were swallowed up in flames. People scrambled and ran away from their vehicles as heat waves blasted across the concrete. The explosion rattled nearby buildings, and a thick column of black smoke rose so high it could be seen across the city. Emergency crews immediately took over the site. Firefighters battled the inferno while first responders pulled survivors out of burning cars. At least 15 people lost their lives that evening, and dozens more were rushed to hospitals with severe burns and injuries. A few victims were so badly hurt that even doctors weren't sure they'd survive. Investigations into the accident raised multiple questions. Was the tanker speeding? Was the driver trained for a load this size? And most haunting of all, why did a truck carrying explosive gas get routed through one of the busiest parts of a city with nearly 9 million people? And shockingly, this wasn't Mexico City's first fuel disaster. Back in 2015, a gas truck explosion at a children's hospital killed at least 3 people and injured dozens, including 22 children. The echoes of that tragedy made this blast even harder to swallow. Officer Quincy Smith. It was New Year's Day 2016 in Estill, South Carolina. Most people were celebrating fresh starts, but for Officer Quincy Smith, it became a fight for survival. That morning, Quincy got a call about a suspicious man stealing items from a corner store. As he reached the site, he almost immediately noticed the suspect. He was wearing a camouflage jacket and a red bandana and kept walking while talking on his phone. From the start, something felt off. The man kept one hand buried in his jacket pocket. When Quincy asked him to stop and show his hands, he ignored the demands and continued walking. Quincy warned him, "Take your hands out of your pocket, I'm not playing with you." He even threatened that he was going to tase him, but the man didn't seem bothered at all. Then, in an instant, everything changed. The bandana guy pulled out a 9mm handgun and opened fire. Bullets tore into Smith's neck, arm, and torso. He fell back, blood pouring as he tried to find cover, and in that instant, all he could think of was his family. So, he managed to go back to his car and sent a single message. "Tell my family that I love them." A bystander rushed over and helped him calm down until help arrived. The incident was recorded on Smith's eyeglass camera. It was something that he had bought himself since the department didn't issue body cams. The video was used to identify the criminal, 29-year-old Malcolm Antoine Orr, who was immediately taken into custody. The prosecutors played the footage in court, and it left no room for doubt. So in 2017, Malcolm was sentenced to 35 years in prison, 30 for the shooting and 5 for having the weapon itself. And as for Quincy, he survived. In later interviews, he admitted that he thought he wouldn't make it back to his family, which is why he left a final message. But thankfully, he lived to deliver it in person. Level 6. New Year's celebration turns fatal. On January 1st, 2022, just after midnight, New Year's celebrations were in full swing. But in Canton, Ohio, a 46-year-old resident, James Rowe Williams, had a different way of celebrating. Instead of fireworks, he was firing his AR-15 rifle into the air. The local police department received multiple reports of gunfire. Officer Robert Huber was patrolling nearby, so he responded to these reports and approached James' property. He watched James' uniquely dangerous celebration through a wooden privacy fence. Then suddenly, without announcing his presence or giving any warning, Officer Robert discharged multiple rounds. The bullets struck James in the chest. He collapsed inside his home, and despite attempts to administer first aid, he was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. Body cam footage released by the Canton Police Department captured the moments leading up to the shooting. In the audio, Officer Robert can be heard explaining that he saw James head through the fence and fired after hearing additional shots.
Saw the male's head through the fence after I heard the shots. Got on my cruiser, went up to the porch, and I saw him putting the rifle away.
Marquetta Williams, the victim's wife, was present during the incident and confirmed that no warning was given before the shooting. After the shooting, a grand jury looked at the case and decided not to charge Officer Robert. They said his actions were part of his duty and that he acted out of fear for his safety. The Williams family didn't agree with that decision. They admitted James had committed a misdemeanor but argued that it was no reason to shoot him on the spot. They filed a civil lawsuit and claimed that the officer wasn't properly trained and should be punished. The civil case is still ongoing, with the family pushing for justice and changes in the police department. G. Atherton's crash. From Death Valley in Wales to the Red Bull hardline, G. Atherton's comeback pushed him to his limits, both physically and emotionally. On June 18, 2021, British mountain biker G. Atherton was filming his project The Knife Edge near Dinas Mawddwy, Wales. The rocks were jagged and the terrain looked almost impossible even for a downhill world champion. However, G was hopeful he would make it. Then came a tricky section of the trail, and a slight miscalculation sent him tumbling more than 100 feet down a steep slope. He was thrown through the air and then crashed straight into the rocks. For a moment, everyone watching thought the worst. His team rushed to help him. G was airlifted from the scene by the Aberteifi search and rescue team and taken to the Royal Stoke University Hospital. The fall caused severe injuries: a shattered femur, broken radius and ulna, 6 broken ribs, a fractured nose, an eye socket, a collapsed lung, and a major concussion. Most believe this was the end of his career. But G, well, he's made of tougher stuff. Recovery became his full-time job. He documented his recovery in a video called Small Steps, showing the challenges and his gradual progress. Every day was hours of slow, painful physiotherapy. Each small win felt huge because he knew his goal was to get back on the bike. By March 2023, G returned to compete in the Red Bull hardline even with a broken femur, which showed his commitment to sport and his determination. He said, "I was only planning to get down the hill in my qualifying run, but I did a lot better than I was expecting. Now I was thinking, okay, maybe I can push it." And as G looked up at the ridge again, he realized the mountain wasn't done with him yet. Officer Justin Hare. Officer Justin Hare was a man whose duty cost him his life. He was a 6-year veteran of the New Mexico State Police. On March 15, 2024, he was patrolling Interstate 40 near Tucumcari before dawn. There, he noticed a stranded vehicle and made a stop for a welfare check. The driver, Jeremy Smith, approached Justin in the patrol car and asked if he could help him with the flat tire. No repair shops were open nearby, so Jeremy asked Justin to drive him to a store nearby. Justin was assessing the situation when, without warning, Jeremy attacked him. He shot Justin once from the passenger side, then moved to the driver's side and shot him again. In only a couple of minutes, the hero had become a target. Shockingly, Jeremy didn't just stop there. He forced the severely wounded Justin back into his own patrol car and drove off. After driving for a while, Jeremy left Justin somewhere on the side of the road and left in the police car. Officer Justin was taken to a local hospital, but after only 2 hours, he tragically passed away. Following the incident, a massive manhunt began. 2 days later, Jeremy was caught in Albuquerque after a gas station clerk recognized him from law enforcement alerts. He attempted to flee during his arrest and threw away the weapon he'd used. In January 2025, Jeremy pled guilty to multiple serious federal charges, including several firearms offenses, carjacking, and kidnapping that resulted in death. He was sentenced in April 2025 to life in prison without parole. New Mexico State Police Chief Troy Weisler released a message after the tragic death of Officer Justin Hare, honoring his service and sacrifice. Troy described Justin as a dedicated officer who embodied compassion. The whole department was devastated by his loss. Now his legacy lives on through 2 children, his girlfriend, his parents, and his brother. Charlie Kirk's assassination. On September 10th, 2025, conservative activist Charlie Kirk, the co-founder of Turning Point USA, stood on stage at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. His American Comeback Tour drew nearly 3,000 people under a massive outdoor tent. For the first 20 minutes, it felt like any other fiery campus event until one person changed everything. Charlie was taking questions from the crowd. A student asked, "Do you know how many transgender Americans have been masked over the last 10 years?" Kirk shot back, "Too many." The student pressed further, "Do you know how many masks there have been in America over the last 10 years?" Kirk replied, "Counting or not counting gang violence." And that's when it happened. A single crack of a rifle echoed across the campus. Charlie was shot in the neck. As blood squirted out, panic ripped through the audience. People screamed and scrambled for cover, but the threat was over. The only target had already been taken down. Investigators later discovered a sniper had fired from a rooftop 147 yards away. It was a .30-06 Mauser bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. Nearby items carried DNA that tied the attack to 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson, who was arrested 2 days later. It was then revealed that Tyler did not agree with Charlie's conservative movements and believed he spread too much hate, so he decided to end it in a way he deemed fit. The death was quickly condemned as a political assassination, and leaders across the political spectrum expressed outrage, while critics blasted the obvious loopholes in the security system. Only 6 campus officers were present, and there were also no bag checks or metal detectors. In the aftermath, tributes poured in from political allies and opponents alike, but it was his widow, Erica Kirk, whose words carried the deepest weight. She vowed that Turning Point USA would continue its work, saying the mission wouldn't die with her husband. After the incident, security at political events came under heavy scrutiny, and many feared that the bullet which ended Charlie Kirk's life might ignite a new era of political violence in America. Level 7. Ring camera captures jet crash in neighborhood. On January 31st, 2025, around 6 p.m., MedJet's Flight 056, a Learjet 55 air ambulance, was climbing out of Northeast Philadelphia Airport. It was a routine medical transport, but the flight would turn out to be anything but routine. On board were 6 Mexican nationals: Captain Alan Alejandro Montoya, co-pilot Josue Juarez, Dr. Raul Meza Arredondo, paramedic Rodrigo Lopez Padilla, and, most heartbreakingly, 8-year-old pediatric patient Valentina Guzman Murillo and her mother, Lizeth. Hours before Shriners Hospital staff had thrown Valentina a farewell party to celebrate the end of 4 months of treatment. Unfortunately, that goodbye became final. Cameras captured everything. There was a burst of orange light in the night sky after a deafening roar, and then a massive explosion as the aircraft slammed into homes, cars, and businesses. Neighbors' doorbell cameras showed people screaming and running for cover as fire consumed the streets. The crash did more than take the lives of everyone on board. It also tore through the ground below. 2 more people died in cars and homes, and at least 25 were injured. 4 houses were destroyed, 17 were damaged, and dozens of people were displaced. Investigators say the jet climbed only briefly before plunging at an almost unbelievable 11,000 feet per minute. It was reported that the cockpit voice recorder hadn't worked in years, which would have been the only key to understanding what happened. The crash marked Jet Rescue's second fatal accident in just 15 months. Leaders from Philadelphia to Mexico City mourned the victims, and Governor Josh Shapiro called it a moment of unity in loss. But as the smoke cleared, one haunting truth remained. A flight meant to save lives ended by taking them. Nicole Barabasova live streams her death. On July 6, 2017, a simple Facebook Live turned into a broadcast of death that thousands witnessed in real time. 22-year-old Nicole Barabasova from the Czech Republic began live streaming a drive with her 23-year-old friend Nikola Vorlova in the small town of Obernice. At first, it was all laughter, music, and carefree chatter. But the camera that was supposed to capture a fun ride ended up recording her very last breath. In the video, Nicole jokes about bad luck because a bird had pooped on the windshield moments earlier, which is considered a superstition in her country. Despite laughing it off, they acknowledged on stream that they were driving recklessly, openly mocking road signs and saying they weren't afraid of the police. The car reached speeds of 180 kilometers per hour, that's over 110 miles per hour, even as the driver casually answered a phone call from her grandmother. Then, in a split second, everything shifted. The Volkswagen jolted violently at more than 74 miles per hour. Nicole let out a sharp yelp as the car slammed head-on into a roadside barrier. The impact was so violent, but the live stream kept rolling for nearly 20 minutes until emergency responders turned it off. Unfortunately, Nicole didn't survive the accident, and thousands of people watched in horror as she breathed her last breath. Her friend, Nicola, suffered a serious head injury and was hospitalized for treatment. The crash went viral across Europe, and it sparked debates about distracted driving and reckless youth culture. On Facebook, friends and strangers flooded Nicole's page with tributes like, "I'm terribly sorry for what happened to you. Deepest condolences to your loved ones." 2 drunk friends slip and fall into a gorge. Kavalisad Point in the Amboli Ghat region is a scenic picnic spot in Maharashtra, India. It's famous for its beautiful sunsets, but equally notorious for its dangerous drop-offs. And it was about to become even more notorious. On August 1st, 2017, a group of 7 friends had gathered at the spot. Among them were 26-year-old Imran Garadi and 21-year-old Pratap Rathod, both in high spirits after drinking. The combination of alcohol, peer pressure, and a 2,000-foot gorge was about to prove fatal. As the group joked near the safety railing, Imran climbed over the barrier with a beer bottle in hand and settled dangerously close to the cliff's edge. He laughed, taunting Pratap to join him. At first, Pratap resisted, but after enough pushing, he finally gave in and joined Imran at the edge. Both men balanced carelessly on the brink while their friends recorded the stunt on their phones. But then, Imran lost his balance and slipped. Instinctively, he reached out to Pratap for support, but Pratap himself was barely holding on, so he also got dragged down with Imran. In an instant, both the boys disappeared in the foggy gorge, which was estimated to be between 1,200 and 2,000 feet deep. The screams of their friends echoed long after they were gone. The clip went viral online, sparking outrage over the senselessness of the act. Rescue efforts began right away, but recovery was painfully slow due to the heavy rain and fog. Days later, rescuers first located Pratap's body, followed by Imran's. Their friends, who were once filming for fun, now faced the haunting reality they had documented the final seconds of their companions' lives. And with that, we wrap up today's descent. And if you've made it to the end, why don't you check out our Volume 3 of the most disturbing videos before disaster.